Welcome everyone. My name is Rafael. I'm CEO founder of Visionaries NV, and also I'll call myself a serial entrepreneur, investor mentor. I'm from Las Vegas. Joining me is Jen and Joe, my good friends, very experienced. I'll call it salespeople from our ecosystem. That's why today we will be talking about prospecting and how to, especially it's dedicated mostly for companies that are not familiar with how business is done in US or want to learn more on prospecting, finding customers in US, especially here in Nevada and Vegas and Reno. But you know, I will not do the justice introducing my panelists myself, so I will ask them to say a few words about themselves. So maybe Jen, if you can kind of like give us like a short introduction.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be able to share a little bit about myself. I'm Jen Bambao. I work closely with Visionaries NV as part of their team to do their business development. I work closely also with the public, private, and nonprofit sector to be able to build strategic opportunities, connections, and collaborations that help grow and impact Southern Nevada here. My background is also in the nonprofit sector, so working both with the nonprofit side, but also chamber, AAPI chamber, having founded that. So the merge between both the public and private sector allows me to be able to serve the businesses that we work with. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, so my name is Joe Green. I work with the Vegas Chamber of Commerce. Vegas Chamber is one of the more influential chambers in the country, so it gives you a really good understanding of the Vegas market, the businesses, who's involved, what they're doing. I've been in sales and marketing for over 30 years. Business development is kind of my thing, so I work with businesses to kind of identify opportunities, how to find them, what to do with them. And I think that that's probably the biggest piece of sales and building your business is identifying opportunities. And it starts with prospecting. It starts with understanding where the opportunities are from a seasonality standpoint, from a business economic standpoint. There's a lot of different factors that play into it. So I think it's a valuable opportunity for me to come and share that with you because Vegas is kind of a unique market. There's always confluence of things coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like thank you so much for this introduction. Joe started a very good segue, kind of like into maybe like the first thing we can discuss. As Joe mentioned, right? It's prospecting is about like finding your customer, but like before you find your customer, you have to kind of define what we are selling, define your value proposition, right? So, Joe, what would you say is kind of like if I am company from outside, right? If I am company maybe from other state, maybe from other country, I want to start selling here. So what do you think is how should I prepare, right? How should I do my homework?
Well, the first step is to do market research. And one of the great things about a GPT, whether it's Chat or Gemini, whatever you're using, you can pretty easily put something in there so you can tell it, hey, this is what I do in Poland and I want to do the same thing in North America. What's different? How do people look at it? Is there competition? What are they doing? And then drill it down and then say specifically in Las Vegas or specifically in Los Angeles or something along those lines. They might say something, or they being the GPT might come back and say, well, you know what, specifically in Las Vegas, they have trade shows and you may want to be talking to people that service those industries. So once you start digging a little bit, then that gives you some ammunition to maybe go on Google and find out if anybody's specifically doing what you do in this market, if you have the ability to search in the market on Google. So there's opportunities to do the market research. And there's in all my time in managing sales teams, opening sales markets, you have to understand the market. You have to understand the economics. Right now with the geopolitical and economic diversity around the world, a lot of good things, bad things. It's important to weigh that in. And we see that chamber all the time. When businesses come and go, when they join, when they cancel, it's a lot of times economics. And so you might come in with an idea, you might come in with a product or service, but maybe the market's not prepared right now. Maybe the market needs to be evaluated from that standpoint to understand how your product or service is going to resonate. And maybe it does. You got to shape it differently. You've got to talk about it differently.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Jenna, from your perspective, in practice, maybe, like, how do you see it? Like, what would you kind of recommend? Like, what would you advise? How to find that market fit, right? Because we all know that, from my perspective, right, as an investor, as mentor, I know that statistics are crashing, right? When it comes to startups, 95% will fail, and 46% will fall because of a lack of market fit. So this is crucial, and we can have market fit in Europe, we can have market fit in Europe, in Asia, but it doesn't mean we have market fit here.
Yeah. I think one of the points, one of the good points that I always like to advise just businesses that are trying to get acclimated here in Southern Nevada, or even just here in the US market, is to not just know just the market itself, but who to go to find out that market research. And one of those is chambers. Those are so key. Vegas Chamber, again, Joe, to your point, you are the first chamber, again, one of the largest that we refer businesses to be associated with and learn, because you guys are boots on the ground. You know what that looks like. I also recommend that they find, because they are in a specific industry, there's always associations around that. So if you're in construction, find out different associations around construction, or if you're in tech, there's different associations there, because again, now they're SMEs, subject matter experts just in that industry. So they have information, or just that would be relevant for them to be able to understand what the market looks like. So being that I would work with more of the affordable housing nonprofits. So we worked with a lot of general contractors, and that's big here in Southern Nevada. So knowing who NAIOP is, when ULI and AIA, those would be the associations that I would refer to some of the businesses who are in that space to understand what that market looks like. So that is something that I think is valuable. What's also great about Southern Nevada is we're such a close community that we're about a 1 to 2 degree away from somebody who can help make an introduction or assist to be able to do that. But there's even preparation with that as well.
So, like, how would you prepare, right, to that? How it's well, as you mentioned, like market research, like, but in practice, what would you recommend? Joe mentioned ChatGPT, right? What else?
So one of the things I would say is your product or service, you have to first think, how would they use it? Where would you find them? Like Jen was mentioning, contractors. Well, there's a lot of services. There's a lot of things that you can service in that industry. So what you want to do is you want to find like third degree people. You want to find people that could use it, but you don't know. So you dig and you find out, and then you use that information. So the first step for me is align yourself with industries and associations that you believe would be a fit. Go find out. And if you find out that it's true, then you're affirmed and your decision makes sense. If you find out and say, oh, I missed it, that's not actually an opportunity that I should have considered, but you learned. And one of the things that I've always said over the years is that if you aren't selling something, just learn something, meet people, talk to people, learn what they have to say, because what you walk away with, if you walk away from a good thing from any conversation, it's going to help you shape the next one. And pretty soon you're going to realize that I don't have to focus on everything. I need to be good at one thing, and then two things, and then three things. And one of the things I've noticed, and this is true of businesses here too, is they come in and they want to catch it all. They want to be able to talk to this person and this person because you're excited and passionate about what you have. But it starts with finding a very, where you're confident and where they can definitely use what you have and you can practice on them and build it. So I think in practice, the best approach is not just to research at that point. What you want to now do after you do the research is make sure you understand where they stand. You want to meet them where they are. You want to bring your solution to them and then confirm it. And then ask them straight up in some cases. Say, hey, have you ever used an AI solution that will help your logistics or help your warehouse in terms of efficiencies? And if they say, I don't know what you mean, but you know that you have a solution, then you paint that picture and say, well, I have something that might be able to help you. Would you be interested in listening? And then that's where it goes. And if they say, I'm not interested, they may need it, but they may not be receptive to it. So that's your goal, is you're trying to find out the industry. You're trying to find out how to approach the right people. You're trying to figure out what the approach should be, because everybody's going to be at a different level of skill set. Many times when I talk to people in crypto or something, they talk that language all the time. So when they're communicating with these people, they're using their lingo, they're using their language, they're using RWA for real world assets. but people don't know what that means. So when you talk to real estate investors, they need to know the application for it. So think about that. Think about who is your end user and how do you explain it to them in a way that they don't understand anything what you have to say.
Jen, do you have like a thought about
Yeah.
this?
No, I agree. It's finding that value add when you approach just a prospect or a potential company. And also, I think a good tip is just to say that you just want to start small. You just want to establish a relationship. That's really where I think that it really starts, is because, again, Joe, to your point, everybody comes to Vegas because it's Vegas and they think that they can be successful because the name of the city alone is synonymous with just could be success right away. But really, I mean, Vegas is a place where people live and love and care about. So we want to establish good relationships. So I think that's the starting point. I think that's another thing that I like to make sure that we advise our clients also, is that it takes time, because you want to establish trust, and that's something that you want to do is just to start small. Introduce yourself, build that relationship to a point where you can say, I'd like to just work with you on one project. Start something small, because you know that you can provide something to them. And again, you're painting that picture, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. Even like going even like a bit kind of like back, like okay, like Vegas, right, Nevada, it's a great place to kind of like enter. But even like entering US, right, companies very often think that US is just another market. It's just another country, but they don't understand, right? But you can see us like praising Nevada, right, and Vegas, but there's point behind this. And as I mentioned, like US is a big country, and it's kind of mistake to think that we can just as a outside company, right? A company from Europe, company from Asia, we can just enter the market, right? It's not that easy. In the end, and I have it like we have it from talking with many companies like that are trying to enter US. Uh, at the end, you will find out that it's like collection of 51 different states, and every state is kind of like its own country, its own rules, its own ways of doing business. And what we tell about, right? This Jen mentioned 1-2 points of contact, right? How Joe is explaining how easy it is kind of to make connections, but in a meaningful way. I learned that it's unique to Nevada, very unique to Nevada. My previous experience was more like I would call it Chicago, Miami, kind of this whereabouts. And I noticed that Nevada is different, but I didn't know it's so different. So it for us, like trying to I'm saying as an like somebody who came here from other country, it's important to choose the right place. And I think in that sense, Nevada and Vegas is a very good place, especially that we have so many conferences coming here. But then, like when we drill down, like what Joe and Jen said, US is relations country, right? The trust we build with people, relationships we build that are very important. Like in my history, when I was expanding my company to states, like I was trying to do it more kind of remotely, just coming to trade shows for many years. It didn't really change much, right? I got some contacts, but only after kind of getting into the ecosystem here, connecting with people here in Nevada. That kind of like changed everything. That helped me build the momentum. That helped me build the relations and move those relations into something meaningful. And like as Jen mentioned, like maybe Jen, you can add to this, but very often, but it's the same with startups here, the same with small companies here. You think about selling, right? You think about big contracts. You think about, like getting customers. But very often, it starts very small. It's about like first customer, first proof of concept. If you have a startup here, you also have to validate your idea, right? I have an idea for a business, right? As Joe mentioned, right? Maybe I will have something with blockchain. I'll go with like maybe fintech, and I want to like change something. Like I want to find like if my technology is good. it needs validation, right? Very often we think, okay, we are looking for contracts, but very often in the end we are looking for proof of concepts, right? We want to find some first person who pays something for our service. That's the best, like from investor perspective and entrepreneur perspective. That's the best check if what we are doing, if the problem we are solving is worth it. Because very often, like from from founder perspective, from startup perspective, we have friends and family that are telling us how great our solution is. But the best verification of if we are on something is if somebody is paying for this. So very often it's small thing, right? Those small things for first customer, first pilot, that changed, like for me, for my company, that changed everything when I started doing research with UNLV, when I got publication, when I got references. That was what changed me. I was chasing distributors before, right? So kind of like a very obvious thing international companies are doing coming to US, because it works in other countries, right? I will go to Japan, I will go to Korea, I will find a distributor who will market my products, right? It works. In other countries, it works. But here, I did the same and it's kind of not working, right? Only after building this recognition, right? That my brand, my products are good here, they are used by customers here, but big customers here, that kind of moves the needle. So that's kind of also like my advice, like when it comes to prospecting, like when you're starting, you are thinking far ahead, but very often there are those small steps, for those small connections that are adding up. And I know like you want to do it quickly, but this is like kind of like a patient game, I would say.
I
Joel,
think
then
that's a
thoughts?
good. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say I think that's a good segue to the comment I want to make. There's an old adage in sales here in the U.S. that you need to make 100 phone calls, and this is old days when you used to make phone calls. That you need to make 100 calls to get 10 appointments, and of 10 appointments, if you close 2, you're doing well. So that means you got to be very persistent, but you also have to set it up in such a way where you're making 100 meaningful calls to the right verticals, to the right people that can make decisions. When you call and say, hey, are you the person that makes the decisions about this or that? If you can have that sort of conversation, it really makes it easier. So when you do get to that 10 appointments, you get the people who are going to be one of the or 2 of the 10. The other thing about that is you want to ask qualifying questions. So if you're trying to set up an appointment and you meet somebody and you're talking to them in person and you're saying, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to position my product or service, ask them questions like, hey, what are you using now? How long have you been in business? Do you have the ability, or do you look at using innovation or technology or software to help you manage it? And if they say yes, then you say, oh, what are you using? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to identify maybe they're using something very basic. Maybe they're not using something that they think they're using right, and they're not. And that gives you an opportunity to go in and educate them, which then gets you to the relationship, because it's a give to get world. If you give resources, if you give advice, if you give your wisdom to them, then they're going to be more open to want to work with you. They don't want to deal with transactional experiences. They want to deal with, I want to get to know these people. And your real estate in Las Vegas is a great example of that. You've got thousands of realtors, but maybe in a networking room of 100 people, you might get 1 or 2 real estate agents because they put in the time to get to meet people, to educate on why they should do this and that in the market. And then if there's an interest in using them as a real estate agent, they'll come to them because they can trust them. They know that they're not just there to take a sale. So I think a lot of it is build value in what you have to offer, but with the idea and the intent to know that I'm talking to the right person, or I'm talking to an industry that can use what I have. But that only comes from all the prep, all the research, all of the information you gather. And then eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get to the point where you're going to learn a lot from a lot of other people. And then you're going to be able to apply that logic. Years ago, there's a lot of contractors that service the industries on the Strip. And these contractors are electricians and carpenters and all these people. But they run into the problem because on the Strip, they're union, which means the rates have to be locked. You have to pay a certain amount of money for that. Well, I talked to an electrician many years ago, and he said, my biggest pain point is I want to get business off the Strip and get it into the community. But the problem is, to be competitive, I got to lower my rates, what I cost. But I can't get the union work if I do that. So he was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then the other problem with that is that the casinos, they don't pay right away. They pay in 60 days or 90 days. Well, they can't do that because they have to pay their people, they have to buy supplies. So they're stuck. They can't not do that business because they know it's baked in and it's good. But at the same time, that they want to diversify their business and get on Google and get other business. And all the contractors are that way. So the point I'm making is I learned that. And then I went to another one, like a plumber or something. And I asked that question, is this also a challenge that you're facing? And then, of course, everybody said the same thing. So immediately he's like, okay, now how can I find a solution that'll fit that? So if you have a software solution, a SaaS solution, and you're saying, oh, that industry specifically fits that need, let me go to this industry or maybe somebody in the same industry and ask them if they have the same pain point. And if they say so, now you actually have a track record of there's something in this industry that I have a solution for. And then you can start focusing on it. Now you're not making blind calls. Now you're making a solution call based on what you're finding in talking to people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think so. I mean, asking the right questions and knowing who you're talking to, doing the research beforehand so that you know what questions to ask them. And then again, no, I mean, it's just, good practice to be able to know who you're talking to and who those key decision makers are, and trying to see if you get an opportunity to be able to talk with them. One of the things that I like to throw back when I have these conversations is, yes, we're asking them questions and what does that look like, but asking them their advice. Like, what does it actually look like to you? Because then it also shows that you value their opinion, you value their point of view, you value how they see the industry. So you're also, so as much as we're giving them, just our expertise on what we're doing and what we can advise, we're also receiving it from them. So now it's oh, they're passing something on to us also, that we can be able to use for ourselves as we grow the business, but also just to show that we value their position, we value who they are in their role. And that's why I want to continue working with you, is because we know that you are an expert, you are a decision maker, and I value that. And I want to be able to have conversations like this, so that because of your role and what you do, and it establishes that you want to partner with them. And I think that's what we want to be able to do when we work with businesses, is that we want to partner with them, we want to work with them in that way. So I think great way to have a conversation with businesses.
One of the things too is starting a conversation is difficult because you have to talk differently to different people. But how do you start that conversation when you don't know anything? So one of the best things that I've learned a long time ago is that people innately want to help others. They don't know how, but they just know they want to help you. So if you lead in and say, "Hey, I was wondering if you could help me," then of course they're going to say, "Oh, well, sure. What can I do?" And you can say, "Well, would you know the right person that would be able to that I could talk to about this?" Years ago when the iPhone first came out, I'd walk into the casinos knowing full well if I walked up to the cage where they handled the coinage, they wouldn't have the answer I'm looking for, but I'd start with that conversation. So I'd hold my phone up and I would say, "Hey, how would you like to be on Google? Or would you think your marketing person, or do you think the manager of the casino would like to be on this phone when people walk off the plane? They want to see what you have." And they're looking at each other and they're thinking, "What do I say? I don't have any idea what you're talking about." Because I didn't think you would be the right person, but I was wondering if you could help me. And then they would get you a step closer, and then a step closer, and eventually you're talking to people. You're not actually asking them to buy something. You're actually asking for information. You're actually asking them to help you. And once that you get to the right person, then you can say, "Hey, I spoke to so and so at the front desk. They mentioned you would be the right person. I'm hoping that maybe you can help me. If not, maybe if you just want to, listen to what I have to say." So if you walked out, kind of to my point earlier, even if you didn't sell anything, you made a friend. You actually talked to somebody that told you something that helped you understand, and then they also understand and appreciate what you have because they may know nothing about technology or innovation, but now they learned something from you. So now if you need him for advice or her for advice a month later, you go back and now you're building relationships as resources, not to sell to. And that goes back to the market intelligence. You're not just looking at data, you're looking at individuals. You're looking at people that are in the industries that are open to helping, because there's a lot of people in industries. If you've got 300 people in the same industry, maybe 10 or 15 are the ones you want to talk to, because the other ones don't want to do what you need or help you with. But the others are more than happy to sit down. They're more happy to say, "Yeah, sure, anytime you want to come by." Those are the ones you want to get associated with, but then make sure you're always giving back to them too. And so at the end of the conversation, say something like, "Hey, I appreciate your time and appreciate your help. What can I do for you? How can I help you?" Because if you know a lot about what you're doing and they know nothing about it and say, hey, I'd be happy to put more information together or introduce you to so and so or give you more information about this or that, even if it's got nothing to do with your product, that's actually more valuable to say, I have this wisdom in this industry. I've been doing it for 15 years. I'd be happy to share with you some other ideas that I can't provide, but I know you need. So these are the kinds of things you want to do to build rapport and to build trust. And in the same time, you're learning from them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, it takes time, right? It's like building trust, building those relations. But like when looking on statistics, for example, right? 90%, from what I remember, 92% of buyers trust referrals more than ads, right? We know, for example, here that cold calling, right? Cold mailing doesn't really work anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are trying to do that, but it really doesn't work. And like I know it from my own perspective, but 60% of B2B deals originate from referrals. So it may not be like it may look because to be honest, when I talk like with Polish companies, I know that like in Poland, for example, cold mailing still kind of works. I noticed that it may still work also in Asia, but for example, here no, right? I don't see it working. So people coming here may have their own preconception. Okay, like it works there. Why doesn't it work here? But goes back to like what we were discussing at the beginning, right? We have to understand, understand like what's going on, what are those first steps, and you can already hear like how different some of the things that are happening in US are from what we can be used to in Asia or in Europe. We can think that it's kind of like the same culture, but it's really different country, right? Our state may be different than other states. So that requires understanding. Yeah. Okay. So, so we are here, right? We've done our research. We know our value proposition. We are starting reaching out to people. So, like Jen, like what's kind of like the best way to find those people, find all those contacts? How should we start, right?
Yeah, I will say, one of the things that I know has been valuable is building relationships again with the different chambers and associations, but also
Mm-hmm.
our local legislators. They're actually here
Okay.
because they want to they all have a common goal to make sure that we grow and build a better state
Mm-hmm.
build a better place for Nevada. And Nevada is a very business friendly place, and
Mm-hmm.
it's their job, to be able to help businesses, to come here. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's always a good recommendation, is to know who the right legislators are, local legislation, what the municipalities look like in those departments, to be able to say that's where you start. Because eventually you actually have to get your license there and whatnot. So going to that
Mm-hmm.
department, saying there's an economic development department that you can talk to, and already just talk to them and see what you can do. What I will say, I think we've had this conversation before within Visionaries and Vias. We've had Joe and somebody from Clark County talk about this, about when they make those introductions, and be able to help with that, is to know what your business is doing in your home country, and how will that relate here in the US, so that when you find that person, you can tell them about your business and what does that look like when you are introduced to somebody, to prepare them with what your business looks like in your home country.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, when you are introduced, then you'll be able to share that so that they can better find a fit to make those introductions.
Mm-hmm. I think like
I think one thing.
Go on,
I
Joe.
was just going to say one thing about that too is you want to learn who they are first. You don't want to pitch your product first. You don't want to identify and do a needs analysis and qualify them and saying, do they need what I have? Yes, that's the goal. However, you have a unique potential opportunity to share information that others here do not know. So you can actually say, hey, listen, I'm from Poland, or I'm from Hong Kong. I'm interested in learning more of what you do here because I'm happy to share with you. There's things that are going on there that I'd love to be able to share about what's going on, because people are curious no matter who they are, no matter where they live. I find it all the time when I'm talking to different groups around the world. I'll ask those kind of questions. I'll say, hey, this is going on in Japan. Do you find the same thing going on in South America? And they might say something similar or different, but then you give them something where you give them insight, and you can say, hey, we do business here. Like years ago when construction companies would come in, they would say, I do business directly with the general contractors. And we'll say, oh, it's different here because you're dealing with the port. And they'll say, hey, well, how would you like to talk to somebody at the LA port to determine or to learn how they're doing business differently? And then that might be you might be able to get a contact, and you become a resource to somebody back in Poland or wherever you are. So the point being is that you want to be a resource to them just like they want to be a resource to you, but you want to give them information they couldn't find anywhere else. And if it's just stories about that and saying, it's interesting, I'm selling this or doing this in Europe, and I'm interested in knowing more about how to do it here. But I'll tell you, anytime that you need any support, if you're buying anything on Etsy or if you need anything, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you understand what the best way to do that is. So it has nothing to do with your product or service. It has everything to do with what you know about the world or what you know about those regions, because they may try to do business there and they don't know how. And so it's interesting that when you can share perspectives about different things that they're not aware of, then that's kind of like you're giving, they're giving, and you become more aligned from a personal standpoint, and then business comes from that. And that goes back to the layered approach of relationships. It's never directional, and I like to use the example of it's not linear, it's not directional. It's like you don't talk to somebody and say, is it a fit or is it not? You talk more about like, is it a fit? Okay, great. But also tell me about this. What are you doing for this? Unrelated to what you're talking about, but maybe overall the whole bigger picture gives you an opportunity to sell greater value because your product or service might stitch it all together. And you may be able to offer a solution they didn't even realize and you needed. That oftentimes is the case when we're here at the chamber. Is we do so many things that people don't know what they need until they need it. And then when we tell them about that, when we do it, they're like, oh, I didn't know you guys did that. And so what we try to do in the role that I play is identify what those things are ahead of time and introduce them to those things because I know it's a fit for what they need. So I think it's important that you understand the buying behaviors, who you're talking to, what do they need that you think they need and they don't know, and bring wisdom to them and share insights that they don't have to give them a better understanding of how to manage their business. And then your product or service just happens to fill that one of those needs.
Yeah, so it's all comes down to talking, right? It's all comes to like contact with people here, with conversation. But as John mentioned, like very often it's not selling, right? It's like when you are selling, people are kind of feeling this, right? So the best sellers are not sellers, right? Like Joe mentioned, like the real estate agents, right? We all know, right? But they want to sell us something, right? But they are very big on the good ones are very big on kind of building relations, right? So you don't feel it kind of as a pushy selling, right? You kind of have these relations with them, and they kind of help you understand things, and like asking questions is okay and very good, and people are very helpful here. One more thing that Jen mentioned is like that for me, for example, like coming from Europe, from Poland, is working with municipalities and city and county and elected officials, right? Like back from Poland, like I was always kind of like thinking about like talking with politicians, right? As a kind of like it's not always kind of like I would call it like clean, right? Like at least in my context, right? It was not always kind of like felt clean, but here it's normal, right? It's everybody here, like if it's city, county, elected officials, they all really work into the same goal, kind of like playing to the same goal of growing the economy. So it's not about politics. It's not about kind of like doing something. I don't know, like not clean, but it's about like finding connections again. Like those are people that know people, right? So you want to work with city, we want to work with county. They can help you, and they are not only I would call like not only like here to to take taxes, to organize like kind of like infrastructure. They know what's going on. They are interested in growing county, growing state, growing city. So those are good connections, and I just like highlighting this because it's not always obvious. But these are the connections you might want to make. So we as visionaries, as a platform, we want to be kind of like a one entry point to connect with as many people as we can, because like I saw somebody posted in the chat, sometimes one connection is all what it takes, right? You never know who you will meet, especially here, like in such a small city, small state as Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also add something to what I was saying earlier about meeting people and talking to them. Years ago, when I would work with my sales teams, I would ask them questions like, tell me more about what they do. And it's like, well, I focused on trying to get an appointment, or I focused on this or that. The more they talk to you, the more they share with you, the more open they are to listening to you. And if they are short and they don't want to talk to you, you can tell right away and you can sense it. So that goes back to the point of you have to know what you have when you're talking to them. If you only have 10 seconds to make a point, you may not even want to try. You may just want to dismiss that as an opportunity because you know that even if they need what you have, they aren't open to hearing about it. You know, I used to work for an entity here that we used to call businesses on the East Coast of the United States. It's a whole different thing. Because if you're calling into that market, you literally only have 3 seconds to make a point. Like, why do they listen to me? Why do they care? Because it's the culture of getting to that point of get to the point right now. Whereas in Las Vegas or the West Coast, it's a lot more laid back. So when you're looking at it, you can have a little bit more freedom or latitude to do it. But the other thing about that is selling is not something you learn overnight. Selling is something, it's an aggregate of all these things over a period of time, and you become your own type of salesperson by taking a little bit from everybody. And in your case, you don't have to read books. You just talk to individual people. You have to talk to people in certain industries, and each one of them give you something. And then with your understanding of what it is, you learn what you do with that. And if you don't go into it with that approach, you don't build your own approach or process. So knowing what to do with it when you have it is a piece of the puzzle. Like, oh, now I understand this relationship means this or that. Next time I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to know that and need that, use that, and then be able to tailor it. And then you're going to look back after a course of a year and you're going to say, oh, I really learned a lot. I had no idea I knew what I did. I used to have salespeople that would sit in a sales call and they're like, wow, I didn't realize I knew what that was. When that guy asked that question, I knew the answers and I didn't think I did. Well, it's because they coach themselves to kind of get that in their mind. So I think to be fair to yourself and don't be critical of yourself and your efforts, think about it like that. Think about the more you absorb, the more you take in, the more you apply what you know. Eventually, you're going to become your own person, and then you're going to be able to look at it and say, oh, I really do know what I'm talking about. I really am good at what I'm doing. And the last point I'd make is I used to tell them, you know, we can walk out of an appointment. I remember one time, this woman I was working with, the process was to prepare all the materials that you needed to build a case to talk to this business. Like you back in that day, you would print out paper, like print out Google and find your competitor on it and circle it, or you would find a directory and you'd circle it and say, how would you like to be there? They're here, you're not. You know, as a fear of missing out. Well, she would bring in literally this kind of amount of paper. And as soon as I recognized that the person that's making the decisions across the desk didn't care about all that stuff, I took the conversation a different direction. And I took one of her pieces of paper and turned it over. And I said, okay, based on what we're talking about, you want this, you want this, you want this. And then I put dollar amounts next to it. And I'd circle a number and I'd put the paper in front of them and say, is this what you're looking for? And they'll say, is everything what you just told me included in that number? Then I say yes. And then you don't say anything. Then you wait for them to respond and say, okay, that sounds good. Then you walk out. So my employee says to me, every single time I prepare information for you, you never use it. And I said, because the goal is not to use the preparation. The goal is to understand it. By doing the preparation, you understood what you needed to do. So when you had the conversation, you learned, you understood the instincts, you varied body language. And then when you walk out, that was just there as a support tool in case you needed it. It was the effort that you put in to learn in order to go into the conversation and be valuable to that person. So think about it like that. Don't think about each individual transaction as a failure or a success. Think about it like it's a learning experience. And then over time, you're going to build your own case of who you are. And I will say this, going back to ChatGPT, if you do some research and say, give me the 5 best sales books ever written by all the authors out there, now aggregate that data. And here's my question. If I'm going to this kind of business, how would I use that data set to answer or to address that? And I use the logic of if you've got a salesperson who's 23 years old and has never sold anything, how would you position that same information that you're selling versus somebody that's 50 that have been selling for 25 years? It's the same information. They have different levels of experience, but they both have to position it differently, but it's not the same thing. So I think if you use ChatGPT like that and just be honest with yourself, I know nothing about this, ask questions and just simply say that. I'm from Poland. I'm doing business in the United States. I'm on the West Coast. I understand the East Coast is more direct. I want to do business in Las Vegas. How do I do that? How do I get this across? Aggregate all the top sales books and tell me what they would do. And now you can cheat. In the past, I used to have to go to seminars. I used to have to listen. I used to have to take notes. I'd have my managers come into meetings. I'd learn something from them, and it would take years. Well, now if you know what to ask to learn that stuff and get that information, I think you'd be well served.
Yeah.
Jen, how do you see it from your perspective?
Yeah, I was going to say, it was the same with my team when I would be sort of on the nonprofit side again. When it comes to fundraising, the sales is just, we were fundraising, but we did have our materials too, and it was to that point. You prepare as much as you can, but you don't have to read it verbatim. It's more of a guide for you to be able to do that. And I would share that with businesses here: is have that ready, have your pitch deck ready, have everything that you need. But when you present it in a genuine way where it's just used to be able to present and share, but tell it from, tell your story while you are doing it, as you're doing it. It's just a guide. It's not something that you have to do point by point, because at the end, it's going to be handed over to them anyway. What you want to do is to be able to use that material to, again, establish that relationship, that first step with them. And then, to Joe's point, make that ask, after and say, hey, is this something that, that you'd be willing to work with me on? Just again, first part, or even just the ask is to make, can we have a second meeting, discuss what this looks like further? Again, it's at the end of the day, when you come to your first meeting with somebody, present who you are. If you have material, use it, leave it with them. But the end is to be able to have that follow-up, to establish what the ask is. And the ask is either, can we do something, or can we meet again? And that's that's again to the culture of the ecosystem that we have here in Southern Nevada, is building those relationships, understanding who you're talking to, having your material ready, and being, again, authentic and saying that I am still learning, but that is my goal, is to understand so that I can be integrated into the ecosystem. That's one thing that we always like to say about Southern Nevada too, is when businesses come here, again, they think they can just set up shop and they'll be successful, but really you have to be integrated into the community, into the ecosystem. To Raphael's point, it wasn't until he started meeting those, getting involved in the associations, meeting the, different local, getting into the municipalities, meeting who the key players are, because it's about establishing that trust. The ROI will come when you start establishing those relationships, to be able to do that. So again, use that to prepare, have your pitch deck ready. It is good to be able to know your business in the home country. I just say that's something that I honestly learned myself, is what size of business, because sometimes the size of business that you have here matters to the company that you're talking to also. I did say that I had an experience where I tried to introduce a client to, a client, they're a startup, great company, and wants to enter the market, unique product, I think valuable here. But when I was prospecting companies to introduce them to, they were too small at the time. So it's understanding, who you're going to introduce them to, and then again, trying to find that right fit. But he had everything ready, be able to pitch and whatnot. But again, it's knowing who you are going to meet, understanding your scale at your hometown, and then does that align with the company that you're reaching out to? So again, trying to find that good fit and doing some research there.
Yeah, so like as you see, it's a lot of research, a lot of work behind this. But this is kind of like natural how it works here, right? We are not talking about cold mailing, cold prospecting. We are talking about more dedicated, more strategic relation building. So so I would try to kind of like sum up what we talk about. So like, I'm new company, right, coming here. First thing I need to do is kind of figure out, okay, like, probably in 90% cases, my value proposition, what I have from my home market, home country, hometown, whatever, it's different here, right? So first I have to talk with people. I have to understand the ecosystem. I have to understand the problem. is the problem I'm trying to solve with my solution, is it SaaS platform, service, or product or whatever, that's aligned with my messaging, right? Is my messaging aligned with the problem people have here? Probably not. Probably I have to go back to the kind of drawing board and figure it out. Okay, like this is my value proposition. The problems here are different. I have to rewrite my messaging. Okay, when I do this, but to do this, I have to talk with people, right? And as Joe, as Jen, as I mentioned, it's all about talking. It's all about asking questions. We are not selling. We are not pushing our solution, because that's very often like introduction, like, oh, I'm this and this, and I have this and this, right? But solves this and this. But very often, like, we are not asking questions. Maybe they already, we think how great our solution is, right? How great our product is, but maybe our customer here has a different solution for this, and they don't see the problem. So that's about understanding your market. We have to understand if what we are selling has a market, right? If the message is wrong, we have to fix the message. Once we have a message, it's the same for startups here. I always say, like, identify the niche. Jen, Joe was mentioning, like, chambers of commerce, different associations. Like we mentioned construction guilds. We mentioned like different trade organizations that cater to the group of people we are looking to work with and engage with that association, with those people, or use your friends already that you have on the ground to ask, okay, like, listen, I identify the niche I am targeting. I'm trying to get, I don't know, to contractors, right? Maybe medium-sized contractors. Can you help me, like, find somebody? That's very targeted and very, very good approach. We don't want to hear like the worst approach, I would say, is, and I understand, like, many of our members are like tech companies that are providing like software solutions. And I understand that, okay, we are doing everything, right? But you cannot sell everything. You have to be targeted. You have to identify, like, what I'm exactly doing. So, like, find the niche, find the contractors. I'm providing logistical solution for small companies that are, like, I don't know, last line of delivery, right? Last mile of delivery. That's very concrete. I don't know. The worst thing is, like, oh, I'm looking for somebody that's looking for a company that wants to automatize their operations. It's so general, but it will be hard to find. We always need to look for a very specific kind of industry, and it's the same for us from outside, but the same for us, because I'm trying to teach myself kind of like on both sides. For us inside, like, if I'm startup here, I also want to be very, very precise, and then I'm trying to find those customers. I'm trying to learn more from them. Okay, is my message hitting the target? Do they understand my message? And then when, like Joe and Jen mentioned this, right? Very often we want to give something, right? We educate them. We explain what we do, right? We explain how to do something better. And so we are not selling really, right? We are just providing some values. We are creating this perception of us being experts in this field. Like Joe mentioned, I think, like, use the example of relators, right? I also like mentioned that, but you can see them all the time on different networking events, right? But they are very seldom trying to sell you something. They are trying to give you value. They are trying to inform you about the market. What are the changes of the market? So that's what we want to do. We want to sell, not selling. And to Joe's point, you can use ChatGPT to kind of give you some other tricks. Okay, so then we have market, we have some customers. Like Jen said, we have to prepare. We have to do a lot of preparation to talk with those people, right? We have to understand what we are looking for, and then we can convince them to, at some point, do business with us. And it sounds difficult. It sounds time-consuming, but it really works when you apply it. And to be honest, that's the best way. I don't know, Joe, Jen, if you agree. You have some kind of, like, you can have some, occasional sales. But what we are kind of talking about, that's actually building a funnel. Building a funnel for a bigger business in the long term, but it takes time. It takes effort.
Yeah, I was looking at a couple questions in the chat with Claudia. one of the things about bypassing gatekeepers, one of the biggest things about that is when you're talking to businesses and you're prospecting, there's two ways to do it. You either start at the bottom or go to the top first. At the bottom, they don't know the answers that you're asking, but they're going to give you information that's going to help you get to the person that's going to make decisions. So you can say something like, hey, I was wondering if you could help me. I'm not sure if you're the right person or not, but I'm looking to talk to the person that manages your warehouse. Okay, great. And then you work your way up and you get the information as you go up, and eventually you find the right person. Or you find the right person and you get lucky and you get a hold of the vice president or the president. They're like, you know what, that's not something I handle, but it sounds like it's interesting. Why don't you talk to so and so? And then they direct that person basically by saying, oh, you talked to so and so. Oh, what do you have? Because now they're being paid to listen to their boss. Mm-hmm. So there's two ways to do that. So when you're calling and you're asking, it's almost better to talk to the person you know is not the decision maker. You want them to be the gatekeeper because you want them to field what you have. And another thing about that is a lot of what we're talking about is human behavior. People that are gatekeepers oftentimes take on the personality of the ownership or the people that manage it. If you're walking into a medical office and there's a receptionist and they're really short and they don't want to talk to you, that's probably a doctor doesn't want to talk to you either. But if you go in and they're really friendly and their body language is like, yeah, sure, what can I do? How can I help? They don't even know you're a patient or not, but they're willing to listen. Now there's a good chance if you can get to the doctor, they're probably the same way. Because employees act like the people they work for, and they have the freedom to be open because the doctor's open to allowing it. The other question there about looking at how do you communicate or how do you be direct or whatever. Most people when you're selling something, they want you to be direct. It's like, don't beat around the bush. What are you talking? What do you need? What are you talking about? An example, 20 years ago when I moved to Vegas, I came from the Midwest. I was selling radio. The uniform was a shirt and tie. I came in, I had an appointment with an attorney. And I went to the office, I'm thinking it's a serious thing. And I have the suit on. The very first thing I walk in, the guy's got shorts on. He's got like a vacation shirt. He's got flip-flops. He's got a leg up on the desk. And he said, where are you from? And I told him the Midwest. And he said, oh, that's not how we do business here. And I said, well, okay. So now I'm all on edge because I don't know how to, I'm experienced, but I have no idea how to sell in Vegas. So he says, no, just tell me what you have. So I would tell him what I have. And he goes, okay, well, what would that do for me? Then you just tell him and he's like, okay, sounds good to me. Let's go. So it was like a 2-minute conversation. But knowing your dynamics and say, okay, if that attorney was that way, maybe I should start thinking that way too. But don't be afraid to make mistakes, because if you're going out there and you're talking to people and you are failing, don't paralyze yourself. Don't think, oh, none of this is working, and then you call it paralysis by analysis. Don't sit there and think about it and wonder whether or not it's going to work. Activity breeds success. The more you do it, the more failure you have. It's an old adage, but if you go to different associations, if you talk to different sectors, whether it's politicians or councilmen or women or the chamber or whoever it is, they're going to be able to give you insight. And then somebody you're going to run into is going to be comfortable talking to you. And all of a sudden you realize, hey, this isn't so hard. So think about it like that. Think about it in terms of the directness in which you operate kind of applies to who you're talking to in the industry they have. If you're in construction, they're going to be more direct because they're very time and task based. That's the way they think. If you're talking to somebody that's a little bit more amiable, and they might be an attorney where they're more free with their time, they might give you more freedom or not, like I just explained before. So it really does, it takes trial and error. And then if you go into an attorney and say, hey, the last guy I talked to told me I should just go ahead and tell you just before I go anywhere else, and Jen kind of alluded to this, and say, hey, I don't know, but maybe you can help me understand. And that's disarming, because when you say that to them, you're showing that you're vulnerable. And when you as a salesperson are vulnerable, then they're open to helping you, and they're not as defensive and attacking you. They're saying, oh, this person's new. I'm going to give them a little bit of latitude. I'm going to give them a little bit of freedom to do whatever they have. And so I'm going to give them a break. And that's a good way for, I think, this call to understand that is go in there and admit it. And just simply say, hey, I'm new to the market. I've got this cool idea. I've been successful in Europe. I'm wondering if you could help me understand whether this is a fit for you or how I should position it. And they may help you, they may not buy, but they may be the person that will help you sell the next one.
Yeah. I always say too, even when I'm talking to people, I always taught to match their tone. So if they're upbeat, you can be upbeat. If they're a little bit more, just to your point, if they only have 2 minutes, you be 2 minutes. So you match their tone, and you let them lead, and then and then it's an easier conversation. And again, it's meeting them where they're at, So It's really about understanding that, but you don't get used to that until you start going out there more and more. The more that you do, the more you get comfortable with adapting your conversations and knowing with who you're talking to. So again, that's another point here that would when it comes to doing businesses or starting business here is and getting integrated into the ecosystem is visibility. Is just getting out there. The more that you're out there, the more people will know who you are and that you're willing to have these conversations, and it will grow. Because then you'll be able to meet more people. When you go to an event where we go there, often where there's 200, 300 people, we're not trying to meet all the 200, 300 people. It's just those 10 people, as you've mentioned also, we just want to meet quality people and just start with that. But the more that you go there, you also learn yourself who the players are here in Southern Nevada or in the different industries, also who the key decision makers are on a larger scale to the industry size also. But I think that's what the value that at least Visionaries NV does for our clients and for our members is that we are the boots on the ground for our members here, in partnership, working with partners like Vegas Chamber, because they are the ones who create platforms for us, for Visionaries NV, to be able to represent our members, to be able to say, we have this company who specialize, who's in food tech, or this company who's in software, and giving our members that visibility here in Southern Nevada as part of one of the steps to be able to get integrated here in the US market. So partnerships like Vegas Chamber, again, it's a value, and we value that relationship because it helps, again, overall our goal when growing the economy here in Nevada and our business.
Yes, and
So Rafa, I got to jump off in a second, but I want to answer Daniel's question.
Yeah, I was
So he's
going
asking,
to that one too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I always used to, as a salesperson, I used to go out and say, okay, if they're not picking up the phone, let me get in my car and drive over there, and then walk in. They can't kick you out. That's just too rude, but they can hang up on you. So if you walk in and say, hey, I've been trying to call, and who's the person I can talk to? And they're like, okay, let me know. What do you want? And then at that point, it's kind of like you're not there to sell anything. You say, hey, do you mind if I come back? It looks like you're busy. Do you mind if I come back next Tuesday? Maybe I can sit down with you. Yeah, sure. When do you want to come by? And say, well, what's best for you? Now, basically, you just took you disarmed them. And the other thing about it is if they're not picking up the phone, stop in. If they liked what you had to say, but now they're not following up with you, send them an email. And then go back and forth and try different things because they know that you're persistent, but at the same time, they recognize your time and value.
Other kind of like technique for this what I like to do is kind of go other way. So it also goes back to like this bypassing of gatekeepers. It's about like building those relations with like going to events where maybe CEO of that company is going, or maybe like Jen was mentioning, going to like events of this industry, right? Where you can meet somebody who is higher up, like and kind of go around, right? Go around gatekeepers, because like if you are calling, it's also gatekeeper, right? It's also kind of like somebody who is not picking up phones. I'm also like I'm the same, right? I'm awful with picking up phones because I see like phone number with the same beginning as mine. I don't answer it because I know it's spam, right? Especially that my phone number is from Miami. So no, I know that nobody from Nevada will call me, right? On on 786.
Sorry, Rafael, I got to run. It's great to be with
thank
you
you so
guys.
much,
Let me
Joe,
know if you have any
this.
questions. All right.
Yeah,
sure,
we will. Thank you so much, Joe.
All right.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So like to your point, that's kind of like how to you can kind of get the best effect on those callings, but like to 5% is not so bad, Daniel, right? From 100 calls, five meetings. That's not bad. That's not that bad, to be honest. That's why cold calling, cold mailing is so awful. It's much better to kind of build those relations, get to those associations, try to find the other way, right? Try to find the side way. Jen, do you want to like add some like finishing kind of points?
Yeah, I think being here and being on this mastermind right now is a good step and a great first step to be able, again, learn how to be able to get integrated into the ecosystem here. That, again, just as we were talking about, is understanding the market. and this is you taking that step. So again, we just appreciate that we can offer some insight on how to do that. Know that we are a resource here for you. We are here to help you do that. We are creating an ecosystem within ourselves, within visionaries, and we also with partners like, again, Vegas Chamber, to the different municipalities, so that we can help you step by step in getting integrated. But again, understand that it does take time to do that, because the people here that live here, just as where you live too, we value, we care about our city. We want to make sure that, that the people that we work with are also doing that as well. And we want to make sure that we help them to be able to get comfortable in doing that. So I advise, my advice again is just to continue to just get engaged, just to keep learning, keep understanding, keep connecting, and don't give up, keep going.
Great. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think like we talk a lot. If you have any questions, if you would like to learn more, just like drop us a line. You can, you already have our contact. You probably find us on LinkedIn. You have our mail. So we welcome any questions. We're happy to help. Yeah, so thank you so much everyone for your time today. Thank you, Jen. We already thank Joe, and yeah, let's meet on the next one next month, right? Yeah. So again, if you have any questions, just contact us. Thank you so much, guys, everyone, and have a good rest of your day, rest of your week, and talk to you soon. Take care. Bye bye.